So today we're going to have a few video lessons or video lectures recorded as support for our learning. So we adapt to whatever challenges come forward, and we're going to adapt today by having the videos recorded and then uploaded. So I encourage you guys to take notes while you're watching to catch any data, because these are the lectures I would have given if our class was happening synchronously. Today we're going to have to shift to the asynchronous method of learning. So today's first lecture is going to focus on a range of different tools and skills that can help you for university. So I call this lecture Reading for University Plus, because we're not just going to talk about reading. We'll also talk about some of the grading methods that you might encounter, also the idea of scheduling in preparation for a full semester, and the ever important topic of textbooks, how we can make the most of them. Now let's jump straight in. Okay, so let's talk first about reading as a skill. And I believe that reading really is the basis for much of the important learning that you're being asked to do here at university. And the key to maximize your takeaways is to engage with the process. So I like to use this little tool or this little reminder, P3R2. So although the content is shifting, university learning will still require mountains of reading. For some courses like nursing, you might have over 100 pages of reading responsibilities every week. So how can you get through it in a way that you're not wasting your time, that you're actually taking away a fair bit in your initial engagement with the text? One of the risks that we run as readers or as students is that if you try to rush and you try to skim, you really aren't taking away as much as you should, and then you'll have to come back and read it again. So essentially that becomes wasted time. How then can we read with engagement? So first, you got to know what your purpose is. Why are you reading this work? What product will you be expected to deliver from this work? What's the outcome that's connected to your reading? So with textbooks, that would often be a test or exam. But with practical courses, it might actually be a skill that you're being asked to replicate and show. So reading can often be coupled with trying to do the task itself, or making notes from what you read, so that you have a product, an initial version of a product that you take away to begin with. Process. How should we read? Well, you can't just go straight through. It's not like reading a novel. You do need to constantly stop and ask yourself, what is the big idea here? What's relevant here? How does this connect to my takeaway, to my assignment? And then you want to capture that in the form of notes. So your reading shouldn't be all by itself. You're pairing it together with other skills that we're learning. Paraphrase. So this is our third P. We've got purpose, process, paraphrase. And when we talk about paraphrasing, what you're doing is you're more deeply engaging with the ideas that you're trying to absorb. So you want to read it and ask yourself what it means, but then you need to try to record it in your own voice. So a couple of ways that you can turn something into your own is to switch the order of the ideas, to utilize synonyms for content words, or to alter the sentence structure. And I'll probably provide some examples of this as we go on in our class. Then we have our first R, which is research. So often the reading that we do will be connected to a larger project that we have to support our ideas. So you might be asked to read papers that are set up in an MLA style, or Chicago style, or an APA style. MLA is usually humanities and language arts. Chicago is often connected to history classes. But overarchingly, APA is becoming the more popular form. And you'll even see that a lot of like English 115 classes on VIU's campuses, that the instructors will lean towards APA. So I teach APA in our class. And then finally, the last R is review. So are you building study cards? Are you doing spaced review? And also we use this technique we call retrieval practice, which is, can you look at a keyword and close your textbook and then try to recall as much as you can about that concept. So trying to retrieve the data from your brain, this builds stronger pathways in your neurons, which will help you for future assignments or tests. Okay, so we're shifting gears to our second major concept here, which is grading and how different professors choose to grade. So I also connect this to an idea I call systems learning. And the whole idea behind systems learning is that you should be open-minded to adapting to the new different systems you might encounter. VIU Learn would be an example of such a system, or using APA citation is another example. In this class, we have our sentence formulas, which is a type of a system. So every new environment is going to contain these new systems. So as you do your upgrading or do your educational processes, your goal is to move into that next big thing for you, right? Your dream job or your career. When you land in a new environment, a new work environment, you're going to have to expect there to be systems in that setting, right? So you want to be adaptable. You want to have that neuroplasticity, the ability for your brain to change and grow so that you can learn a new system quickly. So it's not a bad idea to remember that every prof might have their own little things that they're looking for you to do, their own preferences. So learn your professor's preferences, their systems, quickly, and this will help you in your classes. Okay, grading methods. Let's talk a little bit about these very important systems. So one method that we see at university is a holistic method. I personally don't lean in the in the pathway of being holistic, because holistic basically means just kind of getting a feeling for how it is. You're looking at it as a whole. Oh, that felt like a B essay. Other instructors will use what is called a rubric-driven system. So they will provide a rubric for the assignment that will have the different kind of values, like 5 out of 5 for content, or 5 out of 5 for, cohesiveness, 5 out of 5 for research, and every different category kind of shows you the skills and shows you what equals a 5, what equals a 4, what equals a 3. And usually it's just you're not using or developing those particular areas as much as the professor might want. For our class, I will be using what is called the deductive method. And so this basically means that I teach you our systems, like our sentence formulas and how to write a proper paragraph and the ways to do citations and how to build and stack your evidence. And I'll teach all of that in our demonstrations in class. And then I'm expecting you to be able to replicate those examples. And when you do, you get 100%. However, when there's a gap between the method we've learned and what you do on your product, that's when I will take little points deductions off of your score because you're not doing things the way we learned them, essentially. So that's a deductive method. Some teachers will curve their grades, so they'll actually only allow a certain number of students in the class to get an A+, a certain number to get an A, and then going down the list in this way. That's what we call a bell curve. Now, I know that UBC as a university, many of their courses will have a bell curve. Not all of them, but some of them do. In my class, that's not how it's going to be. I give you credit for your work. So if every single person in the class nails it, everybody in the class is going to get a good grade. I'm not going to compare you to your peers. I'm only looking that you can do the work that I'm teaching you, that you can do the methods that we're learning, and if you do them effectively, you'll do really well in our class. And some classes, and this is also the case for our class, the assignments are all weighted, right? So when you look at my class outline or our course outline or our syllabus, it tells you what percentage each project is given. So even though an essay might be graded out of 25 or 30 points, right? Like I give you 5 for your content, 5 for your writing tools, 5 for your organization, 5 points for your research. But the entire project, even though it's scored out of 25, is worth 10% of your grade. So that's what a weighted assignment means. Okay, scheduling. This is a really big one for students, and I call it the ultimate student hack. So where can you generate your schedule from on FNFS 100? Well, obviously you're going to go to the course syllabus, right? And scheduling is not simply the idea of writing in the due dates in your planner. You should also think about how much time each assignment's process will take. You've got brainstorming, outlining, writing the first draft, doing research, right? Incorporating the research, and all of these different steps of the process, they take time. So you need to plan ahead for that. So plan your workflow. How many work sessions do you need for each assignment? For me, for an essay, I would plan at least 6 to 8 work sessions to complete a big project like an essay or a report or a research paper. And each of those smaller blocks of time, you have a specific goal. Breaking your assignments down into smaller pieces is a really good success strategy. Yeah, and so as I've kind of indicated here, for the bigger projects, you're going to want to space out those work sessions over 3 to 5 weeks. So you really do have to be quite well organized. And when I was a student, I would plan each night. I would say, okay, I'm putting an hour into this paper here for this class. I'm going to take a little break there. Then I'm going to do some review of my study notes for that biology class. And I would actually schedule block in 45-minute to 50-minute work periods with a 10-minute break in between. And then I'd also kind of gauge it. Like if I felt myself getting burned out, I would take a longer break, or I would even just draw a line under it for the night. You have to be realistic, and you do need to get your rest. And exams, similarly, you want to lead in for your exams 3 to 4 weeks. And again, you need to schedule those study sessions. And I would even schedule what units or chapters or topics I was reviewing in each of those study sections. And then, of course, you want to go back through your feedback when you're looking at assignments. In this class, each smaller assignment builds towards a larger project. And so the feedback that I'll be giving you on your initial writing projects should help you know what you need to do for the bigger chunks of work. And finally, an organized student is a successful student. Organization as a skill will lead to less stress, which will increase your happiness and your free time. Okay, wonderful.